So good morning, bonjour à tous. Thank you so much for joining us today for this latest edition of the Distinguished Speaker Series hosted by the Moncton Chamber of Commerce. I'm Steve Lunn, partner with Deloitte. Chez Deloitte, nous sommes fiers d'être la commanditaire principale de ces événements. Nous croyons fermement au pouvoir des conversations significatives pour stimuler la croissance et la prospérité dans notre région de Grand Moncton. The Moncton Chamber has consistently demonstrated its commitment to fostering a thriving business environment. And we applaud the efforts in bringing leaders together from various sectors to exchange ideas and collaborate for the betterment of our community. This morning, I'm pleased to introduce Blaine Higgs, the Premier of New Brunswick. Blaine Higgs, first elected to the Legislative Assembly in September 2010. He represents the riding of Quispam-Cis. On October 2010, he was sworn in as Minister of Finance, Minister responsible for the New Brunswick Liquor Corporation, Minister responsible for the New Brunswick Investment Management Corporation, Minister responsible for the New Brunswick Lotteries and Gaming Corporation, and Chair of the Board of Management. He also served as Minister of Human Resources until October 2012. Mr. Higgs was re-elected to the Legislative Assembly on September 2014 as MLA for Quispam-Cis, and in 2016 he was elected leader of the Progressive Conservative Party. On September 2018, he was elected for a third term as the MLA for Quispam-Cis. On November 2018, he formed the first minority government in 100 years and became the 34th Premier of New Brunswick. On September 2020, Premier Higgs was elected for the fourth term and formed a majority government, becoming the first Premier since Bernard Lord to secure a second mandate from the people of New Brunswick. He has traveled extensively for business and pleasure. The insight learned through this interaction with different cultures provides him with a real appreciation for the challenges that New Brunswick faces in the global economy. So Greater Moncton, please welcome me and join me in welcoming Premier Higgs.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. I was going to say the late Blaine Higgs, but I don't like the sound of that, really. But we did make it in time not to hold the proceedings up. You know, talking about being the 34th Premier, and so in my office, there's a jersey hanging up in the back if anyone wants to watch any online interviews, and it's the Toronto Maple Leafs, and 34 is up, signed by all of the premiers. And it's because I'm the 34th Premier, not because Austin Matthews, just for clarification. However, I'm not talking much about the Toronto Maple Leafs. As I was kind of thinking about one more loss this year in the first round, which I'm very accustomed to, actually, I feel it teaches adversity, you know, this constant disappointment that the Leafs have. But I heard someone on the radio talking about the next morning, you know, commiserating with all of us that they lost on that, or kind of thinking about that. And he said, you know, I'm going to ask for the 6 Maple Leafs to be present and be pallbearers at my funeral. And he said, I want to have the Leafs let me down one last time. So I guess you just get used to it. So good afternoon. Bonjour tout le monde. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's a pleasure to be here with Mayor Don Arnold, Mayor Andrew LeBlanc, and Minister Turner, Minister Steeves, Minister Sherry Wilson. I said, you know, when I was coming in, that was part of the Distinguished Speaker Series, so I'm honored to be here. But I learned how that works. You know, I was a young engineer. I was over in Ireland when I was working for the oil company, and I was doing some meetings and interviews, and I was introduced as the expert from New Brunswick. And all of a sudden, I realized how experts were formed. So it didn't. It came as an opportunity at that time. So I enjoy being with leaders. I enjoy being here with folks that I have, I guess, an affinity to, because that's my career over 33 years. Les chefs d'entreprise ont été en premier plan de ce processus pour nous aider à bâtir la communauté plus forte et une économie plus forte. So thank you so much for all that you do. Merci pour votre travail. So one thing I know about good business folks is people that have in common is they like to understand where you've been and understand where you're going. So one of the things that bothered me the most back several years ago was the thoughts in the paper, national news would be always commented on the state of New Brunswick. So when I talk today, I want to talk a bit about how we've been as a province, highlight what's happening right now, and end with a preview of where we're going. When we came to office in 2018, we went to work immediately to strengthen our financial position, because that's what the foundation of any company is built on. Now, people say you can't run government like a business, but you can get better value for every tax dollar spent. And we haven't raised any taxes since we've come here, because it's just about finding better ways to spend money. The money that you earn, hard-earned money every day. And the point of how we manage the government, and of course we've all seen inflation, we've all seen an increase in the costs of living and the costs of and the revenue increases. But it's a path that we're on as a province that I think is bringing some attention, certainly to New Brunswick. We did start by tackling the debt that was handcuffing us for decades. And if you remember the book, Over the Cliff, and I'd asked Richard Sayon to write a sequel to that, but I don't think it's coming out anytime soon. We were losing on private sector investment, and there was a sense of despair that was taking hold in our province. Like, you can't do it in New Brunswick. And then our employment levels were some of the worst in the country, and our economy had been propped up by tax dollars. We had about 60% plus of public money that was generating our economy. And how long do you think increasing taxes and spending tax dollars to generate economy is going to last? So the headlines were terrible, but it was a fast forward to today. Things do look different. Now, I would say that during COVID, you know, we were recognized in the Atlantic bubble and certainly one of the safer areas in the country. And a lot of people looked at Atlantic Canada for the first time. A lot of people in New Brunswick looked at New Brunswick for the first time and started going around the province and finding more ways, I guess, and things to see that they didn't realize was here. And when we did that tourism rebate, it really opened it up for a lot of people and said, wow, I didn't know. When we had, as I said, bad headlines, we directed most exclusively the personal tax on the government. Well, we still get those. Missing successes in our province. What concerns me about, you know, it's one thing to be a target personally, but it's another not to talk about the great efforts that businesses are doing and people are doing around this province, no matter in what sector, no matter in what discipline. And we were just talking about the under 40 entrepreneurs and the recognition. Now maybe that's going to be written up somewhere, hopefully. I was at the O&B Awards with the minister the other night, and I mean, all these companies, record exports this past year, and 10 companies got awards, and I don't think there was a report, or the media certainly weren't there. And so you just say, well, why is that? Why can't we focus on the successes of others? Let's not just focus on the successes of one government or another trying to sing their praises, because the idea is that we don't create. We create the ability, the interest, the attention, and hopefully the working climate that makes it affordable to live and work and invest in New Brunswick. And I've always considered that we need to demonstrate what we're asking all of you to do, and that's to expand, to grow, and do better every day with what you do. And when I think about, we've had 6 balanced budgets, including being one of only 2 provinces to balance their budget this year. We've been able to reduce our net debt by approximately $2 billion, which is worth about $75 million a year. And that money has gone right back out into the system in healthcare or education, social services. It's out there, and more so. It's allowed us to invest more in the public services New Brunswickers value and deserve, and it's including in healthcare and education. We've also provided more than $370 million in tax relief to New Brunswickers. The commitment to strong financial management is being recognized. However, there's a concern. When we met with the rating agencies, Moody's and DBRS and the others, Moody's gave us an upgrade in our rating. But the cautionary note is, and if you look at Newfoundland, and I often use this as an example, when their revenues came in strong, when they got the royalties for oil and gas, their cost of government just shot up correspondingly. So they went right up to the max of what they were getting off of the revenues. And then when the prices came down, the production came down, they're sitting high and dry in a real troubled area. And that's why when I look at this, DBRS said over and over again to me, they said, well, what do you think could be the case in relation to the future? Do you think that New Brunswick can maintain 6 balanced budgets? And I said, well, this is an election year. So I can't comment on what may happen in the election, but I can comment that we will maintain balanced budgets throughout. And that is a focus that I believe is important to this province. I believe it's caused people to look at our province as places to invest, a stable economy, a province that manages its own affairs. But we continue to work hard to attract new businesses. Nous continuons à travailler fort pour attirer des nouvelles entreprises dans la province. At the very beginning, we came in and many businesses said worksite premiums are too high. We were one of the highest in the country, $265. And we went to work, we passed legislation, we actually made changes there quickly. We went from $265 to $1.18 per hundred today. And while at the same time, most recently, we raised benefits from 85% to 90%. So you can look after employers and employees. And you can by managing what you do. And WorkSafe's done a great job working with all of you to have people, get the right care, the right support, the right insurance when they need it, but to have a safer work environment. We've cut $90 million out of the government red tape, so we want New Brunswickers to be a place where more businesses set up shop. I believe we've been discussing this further during the fireside chat, so we'll save those comments for then. Another important element of attracting business and enabling businesses to grow and expand is having skilled workers available. And there's the challenge. But I understand we're chatting here at the table in relation to the new graduates and all going to work, and many right here in Moncton, many going back home to areas in the province. When did we see that before? When you can actually go back home and find jobs in the place where you grew up. Now, I got to admit, I am an exception in that rule because the little community I came from, population about 10, employment is still a bit of a challenge. But anyway, I don't see that change anytime soon. But having a skilled workforce, we must have a strong education system that evolves and grows around it. And certainly our post-secondary institutions are living up to that challenge. And we've seen that dramatically in the last 5 or 6 years. And I hope that certainly we've made changes to the system to allow that and worked with them to get the education timeline shortened. And I think that we've seen the results of that. Pourvoir de travail qualifié, nous devrons avoir un système d'éducation solide qui évolue et qui connaît une croissance. We have an ongoing challenge in education. Our focus is going to be get back on the curriculum. Let's really get focused on what our kids need to succeed. And when they graduate, they can be top in their class, and that's top in any class in this country, so that we can compete in the market. And that's been our goal. Our government, as I said, is working closely with post-secondary. The Skilled Trades NB will help bring recognition to apprenticeships as a viable and desirable path forward. This is more important than ever as labor force projections indicate that about 10,000 workers in the construction sector alone will be needed over the next 10 years. We all remember the days when the New Brunswick population was stagnant or dropping and our young people were leaving. That's no longer the case. According to Stats Canada, NB population is over 854,000, up more than 33,000 since beginning of 2023, and up more than 80,000 since the beginning of 2019. And the mayor was quick to point out that Moncton is leading the way in leaps and bounds. And what was it, 49.3? The whole region. And we're going for 50 plus in terms of the growth here in this area. The population growth is crucial, obviously, to future success of our province. And so long we were indeed stagnant. The attraction and attention of newcomers is critical to helping us increase our province's population and meet the needs of our employers. And we went through a lot to bring in more foreign workers, to get more people in the labor force. And I've seen that shift over the last while, certainly where people are getting the employees they need. There's always more challenges, more work to do in that regard, but a big shift. I think we filled a lot of voids over the last several years. La croissance démographique est cruciale pour assurer la réussite de notre province. Et il est essentiel d'attirer et de retenir de nouveaux arrivants pour nous aider à faire augmenter la population de notre province et à répondre aux besoins de nos employeurs. So we talked about the growth in Moncton in terms of year-over-year population growth at 6.1%, and then the first in the country in terms of five-year growth at 17.7%. Over the past 5 years, the Greater Moncton area labor force has grown by 11,500 or 13.3%. Today, New Brunswick is seeing opportunities like we never have seen before. Aujourd'hui, le Nouveau-Brunswick connaît des possibilités comme jamais auparavant. We welcome the growth of population, but we know that we recognize it creates other challenges, including increased demand for services such as healthcare and housing. In healthcare, part of the reason for this year, we passed the largest healthcare budget in New Brunswick history. We have allocated historic levels of health funding of nearly $3.9 billion, up $1 billion per year since we started. And while this is important, money alone will not fix the challenges we faced. We also need a complete mindset shift to fully implement the patient-first strategy, thus ensuring New Brunswickers have access to the right care they need in the right setting from the right professionals. Our best health care for all New Brunswickers can only be delivered when both Vitality and Horizon work together, coordinating capabilities throughout this entire province. And I'm excited to say with the board restructure and the different process we put in place here is basically having managers involved in healthcare. We've always had lots of people involved in healthcare that could spend more money. But now we have people that are heads of major companies that are in Vitality and Horizon, looking at the delivery of service, looking at a patient-first strategy, wanting physicians to give you an option. So if you can't get a surgery done, wherever it may be, if it's Moncton, it's St. John or Fredericton, but you can get it done in Bathurst or you can get it done in another part of the province, give the option to the patient and basically allow that flexibility to utilize our entire network. We have 22 hospitals for 850,000 people. We've added healthcare challenges with 80,000 new people, but we can use our entire network to do that, to help fulfill those needs. And I'm excited about My Health app. I don't know how many people may be on that, about 110,000 people are on it now. It's really a pretty neat app. It basically gives you your lab tests. It allows you now to book blood tests. It allows you to book x-rays. The idea is that ultimately when you go online, it'll give you a series of healthcare connections. So it could be a pharmacist, it could be a physician, a nurse practitioner, but you go through a series of where you want to, what you need, rather than say, well, I don't have a family doctor. So on the family doctor, we have 125 more family doctors now than we had a few years ago. However, everyone in the country is crying for more and more doctors. But the added challenge we have is that as old docs retire, a new doc takes on about a third of the patient load. So there lies a new challenge. No matter how many more we get, we need to find a better way to manage the resource and make sure that when you need a doctor, you can get a doctor, but you may not always need the first step to be a doctor. They want to work in collaborative care. You know, you can't blame people for wanting to have a life along with being in medicine, because we all can find a work-life balance that maybe works differently. And that's the goal, a collaborative care model that has a clinic that's tied to several doctors. And we have, I think, about 30 of those now. And you have some very successful ones in this region, I think, that are working well. So I think the idea of making a reality of how we coordinate better, how we provide innovative approaches. Someone asked me, what is the thing that I would spend the most on right now in the healthcare system? And I said, the clinical information system. We have put $10 million into our budget to study what's needed, to look at best practices, and come up with a plan and a vision to implement a clinical information system that will provide your data to any doctor anywhere in this province, but anywhere else for that matter, so that we can streamline the flow from one hospital to another, one caregiver to another, but have a full information flow of what's needed and where it's needed. Today, we do not have visibility into operating and managing the healthcare system. I was asked years ago, I said, what's a list of questions? And basically, what should we look at in terms of healthcare? And when I was asked one basic question, and they said, there's 10 here, but if you can't answer the first one, you can stop right there. And the first one was, who manages clinical services for the province of New Brunswick? Anyone care to hazard a guess? The answer is no one. Everything is managed independently. So when you think of that, how do you bring a network together? That's why the clinical information system would be so critical to better healthcare. And that's why we just can't go down the same old road. We need to have a better program. My Health NB, as I mentioned, it began as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's developed here locally in the province over Right now, we got over 32,000 New Brunswickers have downloaded the app so far, and over 110,000 people have access, as I mentioned, to My Health. This project is a tremendous step towards standardizing healthcare in our province. We not only should expect it, but we deserve to get better. I mentioned about collaborative care clinics, and we need, as we continue to recruit staff, I think we've had some great success there in the nursing front. We've having more nurses, we're hiring more nurses than are retiring. So we're certainly gaining on that sense, and we'll talk more about that, I think, on the fireside chat as well. So when it comes to making housing affordable is our challenge. I think we have about 5,500 units, and the majority of them are right here. You just can't drive by anywhere in this area without seeing multiple units being built. We have put measures in place to protect tenants and make life more affordable for New Brunswickers, but we know that is one of our biggest challenges. Nous avons mis en place des mesures pour aider à protéger les locataires et pour rendre la vie plus affordable pour les gens de New Brunswick. We've invested in direct-to-tenant rural rental benefits, new rental supplements, and a provincial rent bank. The rent bank is an example of how we listened to New Brunswickers and took steps to help ease the housing crunch. Many are feeling by providing grants that can help and with expenses directly linked to staying housed, including rent essentials, utilities, and a damage deposit. We also paid out over 550,000 grants to hundreds of New Brunswickers in need. While we don't have a rent cap in New Brunswick, we do have rent control. Landlords can't simply raise rent, however, as much as they want. While people pretend rent caps will solve everything, we don't see that. We think that is not the business approach that we want to have for a free marketplace. And currently, New Brunswick still has one of the lowest average rents in the country. So we're monitoring that closely, but following, not getting tied up in kind of the rhetoric of rent cap, rent control, but trying to find a balance that works for landlords and tenants and people that want to invest and build in the housing sector. We are seeing record developments. I mentioned New Brunswick has over 5,200 housing units under construction, and we're building the first public housing in the province in 40 years. The first 3 months of this year, a time that is traditionally slow for construction, we've had the highest housing start since 1948. Home ownership in this province remains amongst the highest, I think 60–70%, which is unique. And I think with this shift of population growth and more multifamily units, we're going to see that reduce. So I know in New Brunswick, we've always prided ourselves that we want to have a home, but a home can have many facets. You know, you work and you build a home, and then you spend all the time maintaining it and mowing the grass, and then you decide I've had enough of that, and you stop doing that. And now maybe people are going to start right there because they're just much smarter than the rest of us were all those years. But I think we're also we know the challenges we're facing in terms of homelessness and what we're seeing on the street, and you're experiencing that to the greater extent in the province. But there has to be a path forward that works. There has to be a path forward that's focused on recovery, not a life on drug addiction. And we're looking at best models across the country. We want to look at working with the business communities. We want to find out, do we need a combination of a mental health and addiction clinic? Do we need 1, 2, 3 in the province? But the idea is we have to do something differently. I mean, we've seen a lot of trends in social media, a lot of trends in drug addiction, things that, we would never had seen maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, wouldn't have heard of, that we're experiencing challenges today. So I think that we can address many of these issues, but it's not an overnight thing. It's not, just what I'll promise during the election. We've made a number of improvements or additions, investments. It includes the personal income tax reductions, provincial property tax reductions, social assistance reform, increase the minimum wage, emergency fuel and fuel benefit, increased funding for food banks, enhanced energy savings program, $400 million on a heat pump program for everyone under 70,000 in income. Increased wages for human resources sector, the more affordable daycare, funding for school programs, food program, increased student financial assistance, increased support for low-income seniors, affordable housing programs. Kind of reads like an election thing, doesn't it? But this is all done. And what I've been talking about here today is all work that's been done. It's not going to happen soon, coming soon to a theater near you. It's actually work that we've been doing in the last 6 years. I feel like You know, this is a time when you typically get election speech. I haven't done that in 18. I remember in 18, we promised like $100 million on a $12 billion budget at that time. And I know my competition was 1.6 billion. And people said, well, you never get elected. Well, we almost didn't. If you remember, it was 5 weeks it took to figure it out. And the first minority government in 100 years. So I guess it was a little tense. But we did the same thing in 2020. We basically had an election budget that or election budget. It was a budget we put together in the spring of 20, and we ran in August on that budget. And people said, so where's your election platform? I said, you saw it last March. Well, how could that work? Well, we just reiterated the election platform that people had already seen, which was our budget. And in this budget of 2024, it is 24-25, it is not an election budget. And in fact, the greatest criticism from the opposition was that it was not an election budget. So I guess that's a compliment. I'll take that as a compliment. So we have been doing government differently. As you notice in the media, I mean, I take some serious abuse, and we've had our challenges within our own group, as you're well aware. But you know, some of that's directly related to me. I do look at government like a business. And I do look at it like, can we do better with what we have? And can we make better decisions based on the facts and based on what information is available to us? And I'm proud to be working with colleagues like that are here today, and obviously many others and new ones that have joined us that are wanting to see a better New Brunswick and see it continue. And that is our focus. We will continue to look at innovative ways to deliver services to everyone in this province. And we'll continue to find ways to work together to complement the different groups within our province. And nowhere is that more relevant than our opportunity within healthcare with Vitality and Horizon complementing each other. So if you think about how much money has been spent nationally, and it's placed our country in one of the poorest economic positions in any developed country, but what do we have to show for it? If you looked at a 2016 platform federally, it said we're going to make housing affordable for everyone. This is a federal national campaign. And then if you looked at one recently by the federal government, it says we're going to make housing affordable for everyone. So 10 years later, a whole lot of money spent, and what they have to show for it. Well, I'm proud to stand here today and say we have something to show for your tax dollars. We have a province that's being recognized not only nationally, but internationally. And it's fun to travel and meet people and say, what is happening in New Brunswick? And of course, I'm always too happy to say so. However, we know that the reality of affordability, housing, and healthcare continue to be the dominant items despite all else. So we have to find a way, as we have made gains in many areas, with the hip and knee, the cataract, and you never hear about the good stories, but we have to find a way to keep New Brunswick moving and keep it moving and keep it stronger than ever, because we truly are a province that is stronger than ever. Thank you for allowing me to be here today, and I appreciate your attention. And we did get through the meal, and I didn't hold you up. And I think timing is right on the money. So we'll stop.
Thank you, Premier. Merci, le Premier Ministre Higgs, pour vos remarques. I think you really laid out a lot of good points on, what your government has accomplished over the last 6 years, and we're happy to have you today for a little fireside chat. We sent out a request for questions to some of our partners. Of course, we have too many to be able to ask you today, but we'll definitely hit some of the key ones. So our first question for you is, what gains has your government made to support business in New Brunswick?
Thank you for the question. And I guess, as I said, in terms of what I outlined a lot in the speech, focusing very quickly on the WorkSafe premiums and how could it be cheaper in terms of people to have more people in their business but not paying more for insurance because it's better managed. Looking at a navigator program within O&B, which I think there's been like 50,000 come through for new upstarts to navigate through government. So there's basically not just, it's not my department stuff, but basically a follow through right through the system. Looking at departments, in terms of deferring the taxes on like a 3-year tax program to do that, tying the rent cap, not rent cap, but the 10% spike protection to everyone so that it doesn't hit hard in these days of appreciating values that are very, very significant. And I'd like to think, I know ONB is spending a lot of time traveling and working with big projects and communities to get things through government quicker. And I know that bureaucracy in government can be painful, and that's part of the challenge I have too, because I like to see, okay, we made a decision today, then it should be done tomorrow. And that's one of my frustrations that has kind of plagued me for a lot of years, is let's get on with it. So I'd like to think, when I looked at some of the red tape reduction things that have been done, that you're seeing that too from a responsiveness from government, because it isn't about government, it's about the people that are working in the system. And it's about people in their department taking an ownership level and a direct kind of relationship level to the people on the ground who are trying to build a business and trying to build employment. And so it's not about government, it's about the service of the individuals. And when I came in, to end with this, when I came in, I realized that through my career, you never were successful in any of your businesses unless you had people in the system that were taking ownership and being a key part, if not the part, of the success. And unfortunately, what happens in the democratic process is that everyone expects a government to come in and every 4 years, which we went through 20 years of that, are supposed to have some idea, because it sounds good on a soundbite, to fix and all this stuff. And it's in reality, it's like, do you know something today that you didn't know yesterday because now you're elected? And if you don't build the resources within to drive change on a continuous improvement basis, how's it going to sustain itself? And if you throw it out just because you're not the same government and you move in that direction, how are you going to sustain yourself? So for me, the biggest challenge, and probably the reason that I'm still at this, is there some things I want to institutionalize in the system that will not get thrown out with a change in government, because our province is really at a place it's never been for a long, long time.
Thank you. So as you know, one of our advocacy priorities is housing, and we've had the pleasure of having multiple conversations with your caucus as well as with you, Premier, particularly on eliminating the double taxation, reducing property tax rate, looking at modernizing the property assessment system, and looking at removing the provincial HST for buildings with 10 or more units. So with the need for housing being at such a critical point, particularly in the southeast region, what are your government's plans to create the market conditions so that we can meet the demand in our province?
Well, when I drive around and see all the cranes and the buildings going up, I think it's working. It's easy to say how, like the HST, let's start with the PST. That's a $172 million item to the province. And it's easy to say, well, give me more, and then expect us to balance the budget and keep taxes down. So I can always give you more and raise your taxes. Raise corporate tax, I can find all kinds of ways to raise taxes. But every time someone asks for something, they got to think, okay, where's it coming from? It's coming right around the horn back at you. So we looked at that and said, okay, how many more places are going to be built if we reduce take this $170 million deduction in taxes? And we couldn't get a determination of that. Is it going to go to the tenant? We couldn't get a determination of that. Do we have the ability to build more? Do we have the labor force to do that? And there was a lot of challenges around that. So the reality and we're seeing it with the level of new starts, the level of comparative starts. And, I know that when you look at so Nova Scotia did this in PEI and maybe Newfoundland, but that's not the model I follow, that because someone else did it, we should do it. Does it make sense for us, and is it going to really be a game changer? The other things on the double tax, we actually did drop that by 50%. We took it down from doubles, no longer double tax. We should rephrase that, right?
Yes, sorry.
And so it's 1.5 added in, and we took it's another 15% off businesses as well, because we recognize that's where we want to go. Now I'll tell you why we're moving. I gave you the Newfoundland example. What is interesting about our revenue spike, because we're seeing it too, is for the most part it's discretionary spending. It's HST related. And you think, wow, with the affordability issue, what's holding that there? And how long is it going to stay there? Or is it a bubble that's going to burst? Now, a lot is related to certainly an increase in population. Excuse me. But I think that's where I don't want to get caught. I don't want to get caught like Newfoundland did. I don't want to get to a point where all of a sudden the bottom falls out of it, people stop buying, and we've kind of reached a plateau. Meanwhile, there's a spending level now that's well above where we can afford. So I'm trying to let this level out. We're seeing with the interest rates coming down, we're seeing some of the challenges are easing a bit, and not have us sitting high and dry and say, well, guess you didn't plan for that. Well, we are planning for that, and this election cycle will be no different. We will plan for future generations, and if that doesn't work out, so be it.
Great. So I know you had mentioned, obviously, your priority for improving the quality of education in our province. So what is the government's strategic direction for preparing youth for the workforce and ensuring that our youth are graduating first in class in this province?
To say that I am, I guess, concerned about the education in our province, it would be an understatement. I think we have, we have universities that are basically looking at, okay, where is the student from, and making an adjustment in terms of their entry levels and what they need to learn at the beginning. That shouldn't be. We have kind of lost sight of the academics and the curriculum focus and the measurement of success in schools. And I just feel we've allowed ourselves to get there through a combination of things. I mean, you can go around with a lot of parents are, both working, the lifestyle's different, and you're expecting whatever that is coming out of the schools is all what we're agreeing or is the right thing. And I think there's been quite a wake-up call here. So what do we learn in schools? What's happening here now? And I think we need to get teachers' voices. Like, one of them, again, a reason of why that I would go at this again, is we need education to be taken over by teachers, not politicians, not coming in the government. I try to do something as simple as, can we teach everyone to speak both official languages? And that was seen as an onslaught to French immersion, which is the absolute false. My goal is that every student coming out of our classrooms would speak both languages, at least conversationally. So then it becomes a social interaction. It becomes fun. It becomes, because my kids all went through French immersion, 4 daughters, but none of them had fun at it. And they didn't learn what New Brunswick is made of. We can take advantage of being a bilingual province, but everyone needs to be part of that solution. And when we traveled around the province, and she met our francophone neighbors in different parts of the province, she said, "Dad, I didn't learn any of this in school. I didn't know how vibrant the whole province is and the francophone culture." So my point in that was, can we have a basic fundamental ability to learn both languages conversationally, and then move into language, if you want to excel in languages, and that's fine. You can do that in later years and maybe in high school. But academically, we cannot continue to water down our academic program. So I've been trying to engage teachers, and I know every one of you will have said, well, I can't, we'll have teacher friends. My wife was a teacher, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, they were all teachers. But how many times have you talked to a teacher and they say, well, I can't really say anything? We need them to say something. And we need them to take ownership and be part of the solution. And I can't wait, really, to be a voice for any group of teachers that want to be heard about how we can fix this.
Thank you. So our next question is around mental health and addiction. As you know, it remains a critical issue in our region. We saw in the recent provincial budget a commitment by your government to address the need for more support. So speaking to social development experts, people who work in that space in the Greater Moncton area, they've stated that those left on the street are those that are acute in terms of mental health and addictions, and that's where we need to sort of level up the support. So with that, I know you did mention you're looking at, do you need 1, 2, 3 sites? Are you looking seriously at the Greater Moncton area as a place where a facility could be built and those services delivered?
Well, I think it's without question, the largest municipality in the region would be a center for a mental health and addiction service. And I think so. The definition of what is that? You know, we had a Compassionate Care and Intervention Act that we were going to bring forward, but we weren't really ready to do it. But you heard all of the criticism around that. Now, here's a challenge that I don't think I personally face, but we face. We had, in St. John, we had a fire where two individuals on the street died. We had another individual that froze their legs and had amputation. And I'm sure you've got the same horror stories in Moncton, but I'm familiar with these two. I actually called the father of the daughter who died, 27-year-old girl that died in that fire in St. John. And it wasn't an easy call, and you can imagine he was not very receptive because it was all government's fault. And I know we have a challenge, and I listened and I said, look, we're trying to find a path forward to what works because homelessness is growing. But the idea that I guess when you think of compassionate care, if someone is unconscious on the street, whether it's 20 below or whether it's not, but they're incoherent, and you say, look, I can take you to a shelter, I can take you where it's warm, and they say if they can respond at all, I don't want to go, do we just walk on by and say, well, I tried? It just doesn't seem to be good enough. So somehow we have to find a bridge that we can help those that can't help themselves. We've always prided ourselves in doing that. The mental health and addiction, what we're seeing, we're looking at best practices across the country, and we know BC is not the model. I mentioned there, I don't believe a life on drugs is the model. I believe there has to be a recovery plan that's built into any sort of treatment. The mental health, we've had a lot of first interventions of mental health, thousands of kids that have called, not just kids really, have called, and it's so important to have that first intervention. But we're not equipped in hospitals well for mental health services. So how do we work with all the nonprofits in the area? How do we work to create a mental health and addiction service that prides itself on a follow-through program, that people get enrolled, they come out in today's market with employment, have a place to go, and you have that continuous connection that keeps them moving. We're seeing some examples across the country where we're looking at those to see, are they working, will they work? And I'm looking for some definition here on what makes sense as we go forward. It isn't something that I can invent in any way, shape, or form.
So I know there's some nonprofits in the room here that would be more than thrilled to be part of that consultation, so we'll take you up on that invitation. Healthcare is obviously a top priority for citizens in New Brunswick, but also for businesses as they look to recruit and retain workers. They want to ensure that people in their workforce are being looked after and that when they need to see a doctor, that there's one there to see them. So we are definitely pleased to see the innovative ways your government is looking to, train and educate nurses. Obviously, with recent announcement with Olton's College, with the Bachelor of Nursing accreditation being approved. Can you elaborate on other initiatives your government is looking at to stabilize our healthcare system from a labor perspective?
So on the labor side, as I said about the nurses, we are making progress there, and we will be off travel nurses in Horizon by August timeframe. Vitaly is a little different, so maybe another year or so. The idea of recruitment, I mean, we pay every bonus for recruitment. I think it's at $10,000. We're certainly raising the wages there to be competitive. But if you think about, again, you think about the model in other provinces. So in Nova Scotia, they had a $10,000, I think they called it a retention, and it cost the province $420 million. And they would say, well, okay, what did you get for that? So you basically are giving that sort of money to have someone commit to work another 2 years in the profession that you're paying them to work in, when you have competitive salaries and competitive programs. So how do we change that to say, are we competitive? Can we pay more for doing more in the way of training? So if someone's already training individuals or new trainees and they're working different shifts and to do that, how do we adopt programs that always are seeing the right pay for the right results and recruitment is really improving. So that's not a big, I say it's a big challenge, but there's been a lot of initiative there. So we're getting I would say, kind of on the cusp and ahead of that. Doctors is, I mentioned the 125, but the challenge is the same patient load is different. So the collaborative clinics that would have nurses, nurse practitioners, and basically using pharmacies to a greater degree, using paramedics to a greater degree. So using our entire suite of healthcare professionals, because you're getting about 20-30% of people that go to an ER today because they have nowhere else to go, and that don't need to be in the ER, but they have nowhere else to go. So having the clinics, the collaborative care clinics, we've got better booking capabilities now, online booking in many of them, because it used to be how many times can you phone, and people would say I've phoned 50, 60, 70, 80 times trying to get in. So trying to streamline the care and utilize the entire suite of services to deliver it.
Great. Well, that's all we have for time today. So I want to thank you so much, Premier Higgs, for joining us today. And I want to thank Minister Turner for setting up the invitation. We really appreciate it. I want to thank the staff of the Crown today for the venue and the wonderful food. I also want to thank the Chamber staff who were integral in turning this around very quickly. And a final thank you to all of our members for being here today and supporting the Chamber. I just want to take a moment to plug some of our upcoming events. We will have our last info session on this fall's trip to Peru coming up. We have our June Business After Hours, our 49th annual golf tournament in August, and lastly, our Business Excellence Awards nominations are underway. So to nominate your business, please check out the Chamber of Commerce website. Thank you everybody for being here, and we hope to see you at our next event.